Welcome to Compliance Chronicles, where we learn from professionals shaping the world of compliance. I'm your host, Liisa Thomas, outside privacy and compliance counsel, an adjunct professor at Northwestern Law School, and a lifelong learner of organizational change. From personal journeys to hard-earned lessons, these are the chronicles that inspire and guide. Let's dive in. So welcome back. We are here for another conversation. This time we are joined by Bill Connolly, and Bill and I have known each other for a long time. And Bill, I'm really excited to welcome you. And I'd like to turn it over to you to tell us a little bit about what your job is and what you do right now.
Well, right now I am head of Resiliency Risk for our retail bank at HSBC USA. That basically means just about every risk stack you can think of comes into one vertical, so to speak. And we oversee not privacy, information risk, business continuity, disaster recovery. All these come together into one program now. I love it because I get to go a little bit deeper than I normally would into all these different verticals, but not be the SME, which I'm not. But this gives you the opportunity to see what they do, how they manage risk.
I love it. Let's turn to your personal journey and how you got to where you are.
I call it privacy by almost accident, right? So I'll probably start when I used to manage all the suppressions for our legacy household business unit. TCPA came along. We had all these do not call, do not solicit databases you had to bring in, suppress them against your active campaigns, take in new ones. That was my first experience with customer choice. And then that kind of migrated off. I started to do information risk. So that was the next kind of thing that came into our business is we have to own our own information risk. And so that got me kind of touching privacy a little. I was able to kind of see from the outside what privacy was. And at the time, for me, it was managing our privacy mailing. That goes way back to a whole different kind of suppression management. And I went over to the risk department and I started doing vendor risk. And vendor risk, it was my job to make sure that all the risk stacks were assessed. And one of the things I had to specifically do at that time was work with privacy to build out our privacy questionnaire. And the 125 questions we had to pare down, I think I got it down to 10. They said, cut it in half. And so, from there, though, I got a call from a person you might know, Mike Smith. And he said, we've got this new privacy program we have to relaunch. And I'd kind of like you to come over. I said, well, what will I do? He goes, I need you to write a privacy policy. And that was not really high on my motivation list. But I'll tell you what, it was Mike. I knew him well. I knew we could have fun and build things. And we did. I went over there, I wrote a privacy policy. And if you want to know how privacy manifests itself in your organization, you need to write a privacy policy. Because if you write one that doesn't fit, everybody's going to tell you. From there, they wanted me to go into and lead out this new digital compliance function. So now, after about 3 years in privacy, they moved me over to digital compliance. And I carried all that with me because I was digital privacy, dealing with the EU cookie mandates, all those things that we had to include because we are a very large global organization. And so we have to consider all the regions, data privacy and cross-border considerations. So that carried with me. And from there, I did bring a lot of that privacy knowledge over with me. And it really helped me because I was able to manifest what the risks are to the business in a much clearer way that they could understand. And the way I did that is I built them guardrails, right? I started to get peppered with all these questions every day. And I thought, how can I get rid of these little low-hanging fruit questions? And so we built guardrails. So if you stay within these guardrails for, TCPA or whatever you're doing, you don't have to come to me. But if you go outside the guardrails, we have to have a discussion. And so that was one of the first times I realized that these tools that you can build, not just help the business, they help yourself. And then since then, the compliance side of what I was doing kept getting bigger. And so I was spending a little less time on the privacy side because I started to have mortgage compliance, deposits, cards compliance as well. And then not so long ago, they moved me into this resilience risk role, in which all these things I've been doing over the last 15, 20 years come to play in one role. It was almost written for me.
What are some of the biggest challenges, and how have you managed it? How have you navigated those? And I wonder if you're going to bring up some guardrails again.
Well, that's part of it, right? But I think that educating your business partners and awareness are big challenges. And I don't think it's unique to privacy. Advising them what the risks are and putting it into terms they understand and can contextualize are important to what I would say a second line steward's success. So if you understand what they're facing, the challenges, both from just complying, but also the resources it takes to comply. If you can put those two together, you have really meaningful conversations with your business partners. I'll give you the example with resilience risk. We have a new process we call important business services. Take your most important business service, whether that is, making a payment or taking a payment or onboarding a loan, whatever that is, you have to map everything to it. IT services, you have to map, the customer journey into it, vendors into it, right? These all come together into one massive, and it is massive effort that usually falls on 3 to 4 people in a business unit. And so that wasn't in their plan at the beginning of 2023, let's say. And so they had to create this, not knowing that they had to do it at the start of the year. And so those are real examples of how new programs, new compliance requirements can really put pressure on a business. If you have a good change execution framework, you could decide what's more important and move it in and shuffle funds around as well. Those two things are very important to the success of any regulatory requirements.
Yeah. So other challenges? Because I interrupted you because I wanted to go back to the resource.
Yeah, the resource, I think that I'll take myself as an example. So when we had to roll out this new important business services, I didn't have anybody on my team that was skilled and resourced to do this. And it gets quite technical when you get into, let's say, one of the things you have to look at is IT vulnerabilities, and is some of these vulnerabilities are very technical, but you have to be able to now understand them in business terminology and explain them to your management why you need to pay to fix it, right? And so that's been an education for us in uplifting our skill sets, and that takes time and it takes effort.
What things have you learned along the way, key lessons that you could share with someone just starting out, or maybe someone who is a long way into their journey and looking for a little bit of uplift?
I think for the person starting out is curiosity, right? Follow your curiosity, because that can lead you places. When I first started in privacy, the digital side of privacy just took over my brain power for about a year. And I wanted to read everything about cookie compliance all the way to location use. Curiosity will carry you a long way, but it comes with a little bit of a price. You have to be able to put the work in to get, let's say, certified. So yeah, I came into privacy in 2012, got my IIPP in 2012. And, before that, I took information risk and I did that for a while and I got my CISA. You have to follow up your curiosity with something that shows and demonstrates you know what you're talking about and you're familiar with the baseline understanding of things. For somebody who's kind of been doing something and maybe they're bored.
Yeah.
I think that one thing, if you're just plain bored, one person once told me, because I said I was bored once and I was early on in my career, and I got this advice and it was pretty curt, but they said, well, if you're bored, maybe you're boring, change that. And so it really made me think, Yeah. And so it really made me think, okay, maybe I am bored because I'm not doing something that I need to change. And so look around what you're working on, look at what you want to do maybe in a year. The whole 5 year thing, I don't know. I would say look out a year, right? Look out a year and say, let's say I've been doing privacy for 10 years and I really want to try something else. Why not try going into digital, right? Digital ops. Those people need people who know privacy. And you could be the one person in that team that steers them. And there's opportunities like that, especially in large corporates. They're always moving towards digital. So that's one example I think that people can carry forward is just think outside the box.
Okay. Well, and they say, like, what I tell my children is if you're bored, that's fantastic, because that's when creativity starts. So, okay, so you're a lifelong learner. You talked about like what we could do if we're bored, but what if we're burned out or overwhelmed and looking for inspiration?
If you can, try sabbatical. I know people that have gone on sabbaticals and they've come back with a totally different look at what they've been doing because they took a 6 month break from it, right? But they came back to the same role or one similar to it. But sabbaticals give you a really good chance to look into yourself and kind of reevaluate what you want to do and your priorities and maybe get some clarity. I think mentors are a great way to find out if you're in the right spot right now and if you feel like you're in a funk, how to move out of it.
And maybe if you can't take a sabbatical, then taking that time to reflect.
That's the root of it, right? Reflecting on what you're doing and you might be the best at what you're doing, but you're just not challenged anymore, right? And so sometimes that requires an action on our part.
Any parting advice that you can share with others in this space as they navigate their own journey?
I think that you have to challenge your own self to move outside of your comfort zone. If you don't do that, nobody's going to do it for you. And that's the one action you can take for growth. Find something that makes you feel uncomfortable and be comfortable about it. You'll come out the other side knowing something you didn't do, before. Your knowledge base is going to grow. Your network's going to grow, certainly. And I think that that's one of the things that I remind myself every now and then when I get to feel like I could do this in my sleep type of role, right? And then you start thinking, that's about the time where I want to start branching out.
All right. Well, we heard it here, Bill. We're going to be lifelong learners. We're going to take ourselves out of our comfort zone. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Compliance Chronicles, where we look for guidance and inspiration from the personal journeys of compliance professionals.